So, I was originally gonna make just another plastic tank, um, like my original first video, and I did end up making another plastic tank mech figure, and I had all the recording, but then it corrupted, and this is the only video I have of it is the final result, and none of me actually making it. But this was a very old video, and I've had no other time to be able to show it because I just haven't been making videos that are like that, like tank videos. And now that I'm making this one, I thought that I might as well just show that. But I realized that instead, I'd rather not be making a plastic tank one. I think I wanted to make a cardboard one and learn how to make it actually move. That's one of the goals I had with this video, is making a tank that can actually drive and have functioning wheels and treads, which I did end up achieving, and I think I'm really happy with it. So I started with a base for the tank, and then I'm going to glue wheels on top of that. And I was debating what I was going to make them out of, and I think I end up using these Snapple lids because they're really big, and then I could use the Diet Coke caps for smaller wheels that go on the inside of it. Now this is just me brainstorming, but in the end I decided to only use the four Snapple lids and only a couple of the Diet Coke caps. As you see here, there's like way too many, and going with less ended up actually looking better, and it made it easier to drive. Now the way I did it was not the best. My idea is that I could put the caps on the skewer in the middle, and then I would put like a straw around the cap and glue the straws to the cardboard, and it works, but the problem is that I didn't glue the sticks perfectly in the middle of the wheels all the time, so there would be like very wobbly parts of the wheels where it'd be like way out, and it would make the whole thing move up as soon as it turned, and it also broke the treads multiple times. And the other problem is that because the straws don't go all the way to the end of the inside of the caps, then they can move back and forth across the skewer and not stay perfectly straight. So whenever it would turn, the lid, lip part of the lid would be cutting into the cardboard, and it wouldn't be able to turn. Here you can't really see, but what I'm actually doing is lining the box up straight at a 90-degree angle, and then placing the wheels at the side of it, just so I could try to get it perfectly straight and make sure the skewer is in the very middle of the wheel, which in theory should work, but in practice I messed it up really bad on this wheel, which is what ended up making it wobble a lot. As you can see, that right side of the wheel is not centered at all. Here's what I was talking about earlier, how the wheel's axle can move back and forth, which is not really a good thing. And that's just because the straws don't go out to the edge of the cap, which means that it can just move freely. So I used a technique of folding up a piece of index card and then putting it on both sides of the cardboard that I was gluing together, and that way it was just way easier to put it at an angle. Not that you can really see because my shoulder's blocking the camera, but just because I put the paper on there, it also covers the gap in between the cardboard and lets me like move it into place before I figure out how I actually want it to look. Again, I'm using the same technique, but this is more of a hinge just so I can get a perfect right angle. Otherwise, it would have been like impossible to glue them like that without having something to support it. Because the inside of the tank is basically hollow, I just glued a tab to the underside of these pieces because they are supposed to connect to the side of the tank, but there's no thing for them to actually attach to. So I just put a tab on the underside of one of the pieces and then glued it to the underside of the tank body. And that way it can connect to the side without actually being connected to anything else. Which is important because that is where the treads are supposed to go and is covering up that area, but also allowing there to be lots of room for the treads to move freely. Otherwise, if it was all blocked off, then it would basically be impossible for the treads to move. Here I used a Coke lid like opening just so I could get a snug fit, and that'll be what makes the turret of the tank move back and forth, and it can spin 360 degrees around. Now, I was thinking that if the rest of this tank is going to be like moving parts, I might as well go all out and put a mini Nerf gun on there so it could actually shoot stuff. But then I realized that I won't be able to pull the trigger if it's entirely encased in cardboard. For the treads, I have this roll of corrugated cardboard, and I just cut it into a very thin strip that fits over the tires, and then I just threaded it through the opening that I left with the side pieces, and then wrapped it around and glued it. Now at this point, I was really happy because it moved, but then, in like when you're actually using it, the treads don't move because they just don't have enough friction on like the smooth surfaces of my cutting mat. But when I do my finger, then it's easily able to move. My goal was to have traction on like my mat, but sadly it doesn't. But at least I know that it works with my fingers, so I count that as a win. Here's it with both treads on. See, they move just fine with my fingers, but when I use it on the table, it just does not work. This is how the turret part turned out. Uh, I don't really like the shaping of the box, but the gun it's pretty decent. I may not like the way that the box part of the turret turned out, but honestly, I don't know any way I could have made it look better. And I couldn't tell if, when I was making this, if I was going for more of a sci-fi tank or a realistic tank. But I kind of went for both. Here's me painting it, and this one I decided to go for like a tan camo color because I've really only done green and red, and I wanted to try out tan because the model that I've been using for most of the tanks is called a Panzer, I think. Yeah, I think it's called a Panzer, and it's all tan. So I decided to kind of replicate this uh, on this tank, and I think it looked pretty good. Obviously, the paint in this shot's a bit wet, but that's just because I didn't want to wait for it to dry before recording. And in the end, the treads do move, and the turret does turn, so I think this turned out great, in my opinion. Okay, that's the end. Bye.